Let's speak to Alp Mehmet, who is chairman of Migration Watch. Alp, the first thing I want to ask you
Alex.
is, well, one thing that I liked doing a while ago, because I'm weird, is I quite like looking at the data around who happens to be coming in on the boats at a certain period of time, because it seemed to chop and change. At one point it was loads of Albanians, then at one point it was lots of people from the Punjab. Do you have any information on that? Like who are the sort of current influx of people coming to our shores?
No, I don't actually. But what I do know is that they're about 80% male, and most of them are young males. That's really what's been going on for years. I don't know yet. We will know in time what the precise mix is, but I suspect that it's from all over the world, from perhaps places that we don't even expect, in places like, from countries like Turkey. I suspect that the government is about to make another announcement, and I don't know, but I feel that the time has come when they're going to try some distracting strategies. They're going to, as they have done right from the outset, they're going to try and give the impression of action when, in fact, the plan really is to do nothing. And I'm afraid that all that's going to happen is that more and more people are going to come illegally, and more people are going to be allowed to stay. And I tell you why it's going to be an increasing number coming, because if you look at what's going on in France, I mean, there they are, some 5 weeks after their election. They still haven't got a government. And I was reading only a short time ago how the person who's likely to be prime minister and announced her 5-point plan didn't include immigration. So just to use the phrase that I heard you use earlier, Alex, I get the impression that the French actually no longer give a toss about illegal migrants coming across the channel, and that's the way it's going to be.
Well, yeah, I mean, actually, talking about that, I don't know if you saw the news the other day that where the French police, French border control do seem to intercept, they had apparently sort of stabbed up a boat that was going to, send people across the channel. These boats are being made to order now. They're not going to Decathlon and buying these things. They're actually being purpose-built. Massive, great vessels. Smugglers are cramming 3 times as many people on them before. And when they actually deflated one of these things, everyone on it went absolutely tonto and started smashing up the joint, and there have been massive riots in Dunkirk. I mean, if I was the French, I'd be thinking, just let them get on with it. Let them go to England. We could do without this nonsense.
Well, that's pretty much what they're doing, I think. We paid the French millions to do something about it, and every now and then there is some evidence that there have been taking appropriate action, puncturing boats, for example. But the numbers, the pressures, the demand for people to jump into little dinghies and make their way over here is insatiable. We can never actually deal with the numbers that are coming. The French have no control over the external borders of the EU, which means that they will enter from any point within the external border, and then make their way eventually into France and make their way to us. And they want to come to us because they know that once they get here, they're here to stay, and we're not going to get rid of them. On the contrary, all we're going to do is provide accommodation, give them pocket money, and eventually allow them to stay and work.
It's mad. I mean, Daniel from the IEA, who was on just before you, just as he was leaving, said to me that a third of the foreign aid budget last year, £4.3 billion of a £15 billion budget, went on actually housing so-called asylum seekers over here. I mean, you're right. We're just like, oh, well, they're here now, have a house. It's madness. But what I don't understand, I mean, look, Superstar loves throwing people in clink, right? He's the man of law and order, especially if you put bad words on Twitter. You're going down. But does he not realise that the international trade of people is now a far bigger organised criminal illicit industry than the illegal trade of drugs. They make more money putting people in dinghies and moving them around the world than they do selling illegal drugs. And that it's mad. It's actually overtaken the drugs trade. Does he actually think that by adding, a few more people and getting MI5 and MI6 and the border force and to start talking to each other, which I'm kind of thinking, were they not doing this anyway? That somehow what is a sort of complex international network that probably works like whack-a-mole. You lift one person out, you find that person, and then, he might go down for some time and someone else is going to pop up and replace him because there are huge international state sponsors of this. That smashing the gangs, as he says, is fantasy politics. And according to an American friend of mine, they just went, do you not realise that you're an island surrounded by water? And actually, if you really did want to control your borders, you probably could. You could actually intercept boats at sea. And I think
we
can clearly find them because we pick them up, stick them on the RNLI and bring them here.
Well, as I say, I was about to say, Alex, sorry to butt in, but we did it for 1,000 years, for goodness sake. And 50 years ago, when I was an immigration officer at Dover, that was always what we held as our greatest defence, the channel and the water around us. Well, things have moved on and people have found their way to get here. But again, I go back to what I said. The real attraction is the fact that having got here, then you will be allowed to stay. That's the biggest attraction there is. And that's why, because of the insatiable appetite and the demand for it, more and more will come. And I have to say, very sadly, and I really am sad about this, more people will die. 25 people that we know of have died this year. Well, it's going to be a lot more than that unless the government gets serious about ways to stop it. You won't smash the gangs. It's almost as if they think that there's a Mr. Big somewhere, or there are Mr. Bigs dotted around the place. It isn't like that. And I'm pretty sure that our agencies, our various people who deal and have been dealing with this issue for many years, told them that when they came into office. Actually, we're not able to smash the gangs, I'm afraid, Prime Minister, because we can't really get hold of them. There aren't any in the way that we thought. This is not Chicago in the 1930s and 1920s.
So what did happen back when you were sort of border force in Dover all those years back? Because, obviously people have been coming into the country across the channel for quite a long time, looking at you Romans and Normans and Vikings and the lot of you. It's not exactly brand new technology getting them across the seas. Did people used to try back then? And if they did, what did we do back then?
They did, not in quite the same way. Mainly, it was in the backs of lorries and in boots of cars. And I was, dare I say, one of the first immigration officers to actually tumble onto someone who came in the back of an Opel car. It was a system that was devised for getting across from East Berlin into West Berlin, and they would sort of adapt the boot and the petrol tanks and things and squeeze someone in. And I happened to refer someone that I didn't particularly feel comfortable with to further examination. And lo and behold, once he got there, there was an additional person wandering about and no one knew they were there. And it turned out that this person was in the boot of the car that I actually referred over. So everyone was congratulating me, but I confess I didn't know what I had actually done. At least I hadn't done it intentionally.
Oh, you've lived a life, Alp. I love you to bits. It's been great catching up with you. And Alp Mehmet, he's a legend when it comes to Migration Watch and keeping an eye on what is going on. And never before has that think tank been more relevant or more important.